Hey everyone, I hope you've been able to enjoy your food. We do have some refreshments if you need refreshed or anything, please let catering know. We're going to get started on our presentation, In Love and War, Love Letters of the American Revolution. Jenna and Heather worked very hard on this program and done a lot of research, so I'm very excited to hear it finally today. We're going to start with Heather and then you're going to wrap with Jenna, correct? Yeah.
Thank you guys for being here today. And yeah, I did want to mention Jenna because originally we actually were having just a random discussion 2 years ago, and we were talking about people being separated, during the American Revolution, how the correspondence would work and all that. And during this discussion, she was like, "We should make this a program." And I was like, "Okay, that wouldn't be a bad idea." So and then Lindsay thought this would be great for sort of Valentine's Day, this time of year. So welcome, we're glad you're here. The presentation is called In Love in War, Love Letters of the American Revolution. Bear with me, I'll see if we can go. All right, so I'll give a brief introduction by saying during the American Revolution, people had to navigate the complexity of love while dealing with the impact on their daily lives and relationships, which was caused by a nation in conflict. Because of the separation of men and women during the war, written correspondence was the primary factor in courting and marriage. These letters usually expressed three things: longing, welfare, and playful banter. The first effort to express the painfulness of separation, the second was to reassure health and safety, and the third was to construct a sense of normalcy. The letters that we will be covering today are between John Moultrie and Eleanor Austin, Alexander Scammell and Abigail Bishop, Henry and Lucy Knox, Benedict and Margaret Arnold, John and Abigail Adams, there's a lot of those, we had to narrow it down, and George and Martha Washington. So we'll start with John Moultrie, and I will tell you that that Eleanor Austin, I did look for a picture of her. I'm not saying there isn't one somewhere out there. I was not able to find one, unfortunately. But John Moultrie's letters were actually written prior to the 11th Revolution. So he was fighting in the French and Indian War with the British, and during the American Revolution, he remained loyal to the British. So focusing on seeing the woman he loved, Eleanor Austin was certainly a way for him to comfort his mind during the war and also give him hope of someone to come home to. Many men express these very sentiments in wartime letters: distraction and hope. But long separation can also change a person's feelings, and John's story appears to be an unrequited love. John calls Eleanor "my dearest Nellie." In his first letter expressed to her that his duty to his country stood in the way of their love. He mentions that he still has the tokens of remembrance she gave to him, so at some point there was a brief courtship there, showing that she did have some affection for him. So she never actually writes back to him, so here we see a single perspective of romance, with only traces of how she may have felt in the words that he writes. He continues to write to Nellie throughout the war, expressing how her silence hurts him, and so at some point she either stopped writing to him or never wrote back at all. He talks about the discomfort of camp life and how heavy rain and the flooding of his tent, thoughts of you being kind to me, made my situation tolerable and very comfortable. By his fourth letter to her and her lack of response, John begins to feel foolish and expresses as much. "I reckon, my dearest Nellie, that you look upon me as too fond and foolish a fellow to be so often writing to you and still telling you the same thing, that I still love you and forever will." John did not write her again for a year, or if he did, those letters have been lost. But when he begins to correspond again, he reminds her of all the tokens she gave to him to remember her by, including her picture, a blue ribbon, a handkerchief, a mask, a fan, and a lock of hair, which would have been sort of a very intimate thing back then. He talks about how often he thinks about her and desires to be with her. It appears that she had lost interest, however, because when John comes home from war, the two are married. It appears that she had not lost interest, but when John comes home from war, the two were married. So perhaps Nellie did write to him and those letters have been lost, or perhaps she had moved on but then realized she still loved him upon his return. Either way, after 3 long years of separation, John finally had his love return and its happy ending. So then next, Alexander Scammell and Abigail Bishop. So some couples went to great lengths to see each other during the war, and this was the case with Alexander Scammell. So in the fall of 1775, while he was trading with a farmer, John Bishop, he met John's daughter, Abigail Bishop, and again, another lady that I could not find a portrait of. He returned several times to see her, and when he went to war, she sent letters to camp, and he also back to her. He nicknamed her "My Darling Nabby" and wrote, "I long for a happy moment when I can press you to my heart. Letters from you soften the fatigues of war." So after 2 long years of correspondence, he finally gets a furlough in January of 1777. So he rode all the way from New Jersey to Massachusetts. He proposed to her, and she said she would not marry him as long as he was a soldier. Back at war, he wrote to her again, "Love is a noble, disinterested passion. It overlooks small obstacles, and the purer the passion, the greater the difficulties that it will surmount." He offered to come to her house for a wedding ceremony any time. John does not hear back from her, but continues to write, begging her to write to him, and at one point requests that all she needs to do is write her name on a piece of paper and send it to him. He inquires if she has found someone else. He also uses guilt as a ploy, saying he hoped to deserve her as a reward for all the hardships and fatigues I have undergone in the service to my country. Then he writes that if she does not write back to him, that would mean she was going to marry him. Either way, he is giving himself hope for a letter, or lack thereof, so he can believe that she will marry him to sustain him through the war. He writes to her father without her consent and asks for her hand in marriage, to which he receives no response. After 4.5 years at war, he received a furlough on Christmas of 1779. He rode from New York to Massachusetts and to the Bishop Farm. There he saw Abigail for the first time in 3 years. She was still unmarried, but had lost her interest. The time and distance had squelched her feelings for him. That July, he wrote to her father and thanked him for his hospitality, but admitted that as for Abigail, his hopes had vanished. John's story is one of unrequited love, but the love that he felt and helped him through long years of war had given him hope to survive. He was wounded at Yorktown and died at a hospital in Williamsburg. So, Henry and Lucy Knox, we probably all know well about them, but this was a story of love at first sight. So Lucy, her maiden name was Plucker, walked into a bookstore, and there stood her future husband, Henry Knox. They were inseparable immediately and began writing about the books they read and then about their love for each other. However, she was the daughter of a British officer, and Knox had Patriot-leaning beliefs. Her family disapproved of the courtship, but they continued to see each other. They eloped June 16, 1774, and fled after the battles of Lexington and Concord. Henry Knox joined the Continental Army, and Lucy's family refused to speak to her. Henry and Lucy Knox considered each other intellectual equals, and throughout the war, he keeps her apprised of the battle troop movements and intelligence on the British. Henry and Lucy were separated for nearly 8 years. Through those letters, their marriage, they were still able to survive time and distance. Their letters are not sweet nothings, but an ongoing conversation between two people as if they were standing side by side. While they did have an incredible bond, there were anxieties about the long separation as well. Lucy writes, "I love you with a love as true and sacred as ever entered the human heart, but from a distance of my own merit, I sometimes fear you will love me less after being so long for me. If you should, may my life end before I know it, that I may die thinking you wholly mine." According to New England Historical Society, on July 8, 1776, while Henry was with the Continental Army in New York, expecting the British invasion, Lucy wrote to him saying that she wanted to join him in camp. He responded, "It is a happiness and the greatest happiness for me to be with you, but to be under a continual uneasiness on account of your safety is what you would not wish," he wrote. "The enemy at farthest not more than 3/4 of an hour sail away from us, and if they should come of a dark night, not more possibly than 10 minutes before we must be in action." In May of 1777, Lucy was very worried, and she wrote to him, "As I can think of no address which would convey the idea of my affection and esteem, I will omit entirely, rather than to do injustice to my heart, a heart wholly absorbed in love and anxiety for you." She continues, "I cannot at this time tell where you are, nor from any judgment where you are going. We hear both armies are in motion, but what their route is we cannot hear, nor have we been able to conjecture what a situation for us who are at such distance, how much more we suffer for you than you for yourselves. All my hopes are that it will not and cannot last. Then on August 23rd, 1777, she wrote, "Poor me, my heart is ready to burst. I have not seen you for almost 6 months, and you write me without pointing at any method at which I may ever expect to see you again. 'Tis hard, my Harry, indeed. It is that I love you with the tenderest and purest affection. I would undergo any hardship to be near you, and you will not let me." She asked him to suppose the current campaign would likely be the last and carried into the winter. "Do you intend not to see me in all of that time? Tell me what your plan is," she wrote. He responded, "Think, my dear Lucy, of 10 minutes to get to your carriage tucked to get on, and then dress yourself and get out of town in a dark night, not knowing whether or not, knowing the road the carriage is as likely as not oversetting, and my dear girl frightened to death. Add her heavenly gift, the sweet babe, to it, and in the very view would be insupportable, the reality would kill me." So Lucy, she did have wartime moments. She spent beside her officer husband. She was with him during the long winter at Valley Forge, despite him pleading with her not to make the long treks. Henry sometimes feared she or their children would be used against him, especially with his high rank in the Continental Army. And this is, I will quote a letter from Lucy to Henry in August of 1777. "Don't be angry with me, my love. I am not jealous of your affection. I love you with a love as true and sacred as ever entered the human heart. But from a distance of my own merit, I sometimes fear you will love me less, after being so long for me. If you should, may my life, and before I know it, that I may die thinking of you wholly mine," which was the letter that I quoted before. "Adieu, my love, L.K." And I will end my portion of the presentation by saying the majority of the American Revolution's military actions came to an end in October of 1781 at the Battle of Yorktown. With the American victory, Lucy's life changed and became more settled. Henry took charge of West Point and disbanded the army after Yorktown. Then the couple returned to a house on Boston Common where Lucy had actually first seen her husband.
Hello. Benedict Arnold and his wife, Margaret, were Peggy Arnold. So Peggy Shippen married General Benedict Arnold on April 8, 1779. The American general had been recognized for his heroics at the Battle of Saratoga in 1777, but also faced a court-martial on charges of profiteering. Arnold's trial started in December 1779. By January 26, 1780, he had been cleared of most of the charges. This letter, although unsigned, is most likely written by Peggy Shippen Arnold, providing encouragement and information on January 4th in the midst of the trial. It is not clear what paper she refers to at the end of the letter or the contents of her longer letter. Later in 1780, the Arnolds went to West Point, New York, where, after several years of dissatisfaction with the American cause, General Arnold prepared to turn traitor and surrender West Point to the British. This letter is from This letter is to Major General Arnold, headquarters Morristown, Philadelphia, January 4th, 1780. It begins, "Yours of the 30th was last night delivered me. I am happy to find that you are well. I cannot but wish you had been more particular in letting me know how your trial goes. You say so little about it that I am apprehensive things do not go well as you expected. And you are afraid of alarming me by letting me know it. I am extremely sorry to find that Colonel Mitchell's evidence is essential. I do not believe he will go to camp if he can possibly avoid it. You say you expect him this day. I have just sent to know when he goes. He sent me word that he did not know when he should go. I believe you may wait a considerable time before you see him. Indeed, it is my opinion he will not go at all. I enclose a monstrous letter I wrote before the receipt of your last. I told you that Mr. Holter had sent to let you know he should want this house. He has for the present got a house of Dr. Shippen's in Market Street. I have heard nothing shall not deprive me of the pleasure of writing to you. I never wanted to see you half so much. You mentioned Sunday for your return. I will not flatter myself I shall see you. If you wait for Colonel Mitchell, the family beg to be affectionately remembered to you. In compassion to you, I will conclude presently, for I think by the time you have finished this and my other longer letter, you will be sufficiently tired. I sent back the paper to you, properly sealed the day I received it. I hope you have got it long before this. Farewell. I must not say how affectionately I am yours. The couple settled in a modest home on Putnam Square, where they became regular members of the London social scene. This letter is a source from Peggy Shippen to Benedict Arnold, January 4th, 1780. Peggy eventually bore 7 children in total, 5 surviving into adulthood. Arnold, ever seeking adventure and riches, led a failed trading expedition into New Brunswick. A storm ran the merchant ship ashore, where the contents of her hold were stolen, leaving Benedict with a broken ship and no cargo. After several successful adventures into the Eastern Caribbean, Benedict was able to bring Peggy and her children into a new home in St. John, Canada, where Benedict set up a shipping enterprise that put the family, with Peggy's accounting prowess, in comfortable standing. Peggy made it home to visit her family one last time in 1789. It would be her last visit before Benedict and Peggy returned, financially ruined, to London in 1791. Never one to sit still long, Benedict soon left England for another merchant run into the Eastern Caribbean, where, after a brief stay as a prisoner of the French Navy, he escaped and found his way to British lines, where he negotiated a position to train local militia and provide supplies for British garrisons in the Caribbean. Returning to London with modest means, he soon lost them again, funding privateers in the war with the French, never to financially recover or take the field again. In 1801, Benedict Arnold died at the age of 60. A few years later, Peggy Shippen passed away at the age of 44 in 1804. The next couple is John and Abigail Adams. John Adams and Abigail Smith Adams exchanged over 1,100 letters, beginning during their courtship in 1762 and continuing throughout John's political career until 1801. These warm and informative letters include John's description of the Continental Congress and his impressions of Europe while he served in various diplomatic roles, as well as Abigail's updates about their family, farm, and news of the Revolution's impact on the Boston area. The earliest letters exchanged between John Adams and Abigail Smith occurred during their courtship, including a series of 16 letters exchanged between April 12th and May 9th, 1762, while John was in Boston being inoculated against smallpox. John and Abigail married on October 25th, 1764. During the early 1770s, John wrote to Abigail when his legal work for the circuit court took him away from home. John and Abigail Adams exchanged numerous letters while John served in the Continental Congress from 1774 to 1777. John Adams' first diplomatic assignment in Europe in early 1778 prompted a series of transatlantic exchanges of letters between him and his wife until he returned to the United States in the middle of 1779. Although it was challenging to send mail across the ocean, especially during wartime, after John returned to Europe, they resumed their correspondence between Braintree, Massachusetts, and Europe during late 1779 until the summer of 1784, when Abigail arrived in London. While they were both in Europe, they exchanged a few letters at various times when they were apart between December of 1786 and January 1789. During John Adams' vice presidency and presidency, they wrote many letters to each other. John wrote one of these letters, dated November 2nd, 1800, from the newly completed President's House, later the White House, of course. In this notable letter, he states, quote, "May none but honest and wise men rule under this roof." This is a letter from Abigail Adams to John Adams, December 23rd, 1782. "My dearest friend, I have omitted writing by the last opportunity to Holland because I had such small faith in the designs of the owners or passengers. The vessel sails from Nantucket. Dr. Winship is a passenger, and Mr. Gray, and some others, and I had just written you so largely by a vessel bound to France, the General Galvay, that I had nothing new to say. There are few occurrences in this northern climate at this season of the year to divert or entertain you, and in this domestic way I should draw you the picture of my heart. It would be what I hope you still would love, though it contained nothing new, the early possession you obtained there. In the absolute power you have ever maintained over it leaves not the smallest space unoccupied. I look back to the early days of our acquaintance and friendship as to the days of love and innocence, and with an indescribable pleasure I have seen near a score of years roll over our heads, with an affection heightened and improved by time, nor have the dreary years of absence in the smallest degree effaced from my mind the image of the dear, untitled man to whom I gave my heart. I cannot sometimes refrain considering the honors with which he is invested as badges of my unhappiness. The unbounded confidence I have in your attachment to me and the dear pledges of our affection has soothed the solitary hour and rendered your absence more supportable. For had I have loved you with the same affection, it must have been misery to have doubted. Yet a cruel world too often injures my feelings by wondering how a person possessed of domestic attachments can sacrifice them by absenting himself for years. Our next couple and final couple are George and Martha Washington. Only 2 letters and 1 postscript still exist between George and Martha. Most Washington scholars believe Mrs. Washington had their correspondence destroyed before her death so that their private conversations would not be published. For years, the only surviving correspondence that was known to exist is this postscript Mrs. Washington wrote at the bottom of a letter to George from Lund, Washington, who was managing Mount Vernon while he was away. On March 30th, 1767, that postscript reads, "My dearest, it was with great pleasure I see in your letter that you got safely down. We are all very well at this time, but it still is rainy and wet, and I am sorry you will not be home soon as I expected you. I had rather my sister would not come up so soon, as May would be much pleasanter time than April. We wrote to you last post, as I have nothing new to tell you. I must conclude myself, your most affectionate, Martha Washington." Years later, 2 letters were discovered, having fallen behind a desk drawer belonging to her granddaughter. This is from Philadelphia, dated June 18, 1775. "My dearest, I am now set down to write you on a subject which fills me with inexpressible concern, and this concern is greatly aggravated and increased when I reflect upon the uneasiness I know it will give you. It has been determined in Congress that the whole army raised for the defense of the American cause shall be put under my care, and that it is necessary for me to proceed immediately to Boston to take upon the command of it. You will believe me, my dear Patsy," that's his nickname for her, "but I assure you in the most solemn manner that so far from seeking this appointment, I have used every endeavor in my power to avoid it, not only from my unwillingness to part with you and the family, but from a consciousness of it being a trust too great for my capacity, and that I should enjoy more real happiness and felicity in 1 month with you at home than I have the most distant prospect of reaping abroad. If my stay were to be 7 times 7 years, but as it has been a kind of destiny that has thrown me upon this service, I shall hope that my undertaking of it is designed to answer some good purpose. You might, and I suppose, did perceive from the tenor of my letters that I was apprehensive I could not avoid this appointment, as I did not even pretend to intimate when I should return. If that was the case, it was utterly out of my power to refuse this appointment without exposing my character to such censures as would have reflected dishonor upon myself and given pain to my friends. This, I am sure, could not and ought not be pleasing to you. It must have lessened me considerably in my own esteem. I shall rely, therefore, confidently that the providence which has heretofore preserved have been bountiful to me, not doubting, but that I shall return safe to you in the fall. I shall feel no pain from the toil or the danger of my campaign. My unhappiness will flow from the uneasiness I know you will feel at being left alone. I beg of you to summon your whole fortitude, resolution, and pass your time as agreeably as possible. Nothing will give me so much sincere satisfaction as to hear this, and to hear it from your own pen. If it should be your desire to remove to Alexandria, as you once mentioned upon an occasion of this sort, I am quite pleased that you should put it into practice, and Lund, Washington may be directed by you to build a kitchen and other houses there proper for your reception. If, on the other hand, you should rather incline to spend a good part of your time among your friends below, I wish you to do so. In my short, my earnest, and ardent desire is that you would pursue any plan that is most likely to produce content, and tolerable degree of tranquility, as it must add greatly to my uneasy feelings to hear that you are dissatisfied and complaining at what I really could not avoid. As life is always uncertain, and common prudence dictates that every man the necessity of settling his temporal concerns while it is in his power, and while the mind is calm and undisturbed, I have since came to this place, for I had not time to do it before I left home, got Colonel Pendleton to draft a will for me by the directions which I gave him, I will now enclose. The provision made for you in case of my death will, I hope, be agreeable. I included the money for which I sold my own land to Dr. Mercer, and the sum given you, as also all other debts. What I owe myself is very trifling. Harry's debt accepted, and that will not have been much if the bank stock had been applied without such difficulties as he made in the transference. I shall add nothing more at present, as I have several letters to write, but to desire you will remember me to Millie and all friends, and to assure you that I am, with the most unfeigned regard, my dear Patsy, your affectionate George Washington. Yes, since writing the above, I have received your letter of the 15th and have got 2 suits, what I was told was the prettiest muslin. I wish it may please you. It costs $50 a suit, and that is 20 a yard. The second letter, and final letter I'm going to read, was dated just 5 days later on June 23rd, 1775. This is from Philadelphia, and it says, My dearest, as I am within a few minutes of leaving this city, I could not think of departing from it without dropping you a line, especially as I do not know whether it may be in my power to write again till I get to the camp at Boston. I go fully trusting in that Providence, which has been more bountiful to me than I deserve, and in full confidence of a happy meeting with you sometime in the fall. I have not time to add more, as I am surrounded with company to take leave of me. I retain an unalterable affection for you, which neither time or distance can change. My best love to Jack and Nellie, and regard for the rest of the family, concludes me with the utmost truth and sincerity. Your entire George Washington. That's all we have for the letters, so we'll let you guys get back to your tea and enjoying your sweets. If you have any questions, we can take a moment for Q&A if you have any. Otherwise, enjoy your food.
Did anybody have any questions? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I do. So Heather, what was the most interesting letter when y'all were doing your research, besides the ones that you picked? Was there any other ones that stood out to you when you were?
To me, there are so many between John and Abigail, it's ridiculous. I think those two really had a true lifelong partnership and a true marriage. I mean, no matter what happened, they always seem to stay together. I mean, one specific one, every single one of them is just so open and honest and, patient. And even when they're getting into squabbles, they're always respecting each other. And that to me is the most definition of love. I mean, love's never going to be perfect, that's not what love is, And so to me, I think their letters were very important to me. And I do, because we don't have so many letters, we really don't have any correspondence between them. The little that we do, you can see that there is a mutual respect between George and Martha, because we don't know more about them. But he always, seems to obviously considers her an intellectual equal. He's telling her all these things that, not every man is sharing with his wife, that you saw how, Henry Knox was kind of holding back from Lucy a little bit. Like, he just really, his whole thing was he wanted to protect her. So, and I will mention that last letter from George Walker, the second last one from him, when he talks about selling my land to Mr. Mercer, he's talking about Hugh Mercer, and he's talking about Barry Farmer. It was right after he sold that, when he wrote that letter. So, yeah, that was, sorry, I was all over the place with that, but I don't think there was one specific one.
I figured that when he said Mercer, I remember that they sold the Ferry Farm to